Well, hello, and welcome to this first episode of this attempt, I would say, at a YouTube channel. So, to begin with, who am I? For those of you, and there'll be plenty of you who will have no idea who I am, my name is Partha. Partha Carr. I'm a consultant in diabetes, but beyond my work, etc., a lot of other work across leadership, trying to sort of implement technology, generally quite outspoken about stuff. So here's an opportunity without any barriers, any comms team telling me what I should and shouldn't do, to talk about my experience over the last decade or so, if not longer, and working in health circles, giving some tips and ideas. There's been some successes along the way. So see what you all feel. We'll have some guests dropping in from time to time to talk about different things. But yeah, so that's going to be the purpose of this particular YouTube channel. But to begin with, a little bit about me. I trained in India, in Kolkata, beautiful place. If you have never been, and actually I might do an episode just on that, so you see what it's about. But it's a beautiful city. It's just aligned with food and culture, and it's just a concoction of beautiful stuff. And I came here, did my training, did PLAB, etc. I'm an international medical graduate, and then worked through the system, got a consultant job at Portsmouth, done some management role in Portsmouth, and we'll talk about those, all that in due course. And then did a national role in diabetes. One of the biggest things has been to, well, modernize, I think, type 1 diabetes care, bring it on par with the rest of the world, and we have succeeded to a certain extent. So that's I would say a little bit about me, and this is where I am. I've got other roles. I'm quite outspoken about things like inequalities in healthcare. I really, really dislike a lot of the racism that goes around in the medical workforce, which we try and tackle, and that obviously brings its own, attracts its own level of what I call trolls and the rest of it. So there's that, but that's all good. If you're going to raise your head over the parapet, it's got to be fun. So, what else about me? Well, I love movies, and as you can see from the background itself, those of you the eagle eye will know it's from Star Wars, part of the Millennium Falcon. So I love those type of movies, science fiction movies. I love movies in the sense of anything really. I'm a big Quentin Tarantino fan. I'm also like any movies about Marvel, DC, all of that, right? I also will have time for in my top sort of few movies will be things like Usual Suspects, of course, Shawshank Redemption, if you haven't seen it, all of that. So I love movies, full stop. And always happy to discuss movies with anybody. And in fact, might use some of these YouTube casts to talk about movies. And so yeah, I'm a big fan of Korean movies, so all of that. Apart from that, what are my other areas I love? Comic books. I really love reading comic books. Things like really avant-garde people like Mark Millar have been absolutely amazing in the way I look at comic books, and obviously Stan Lee, the great man himself, Frank Miller, all those books. I love it. Neil Adams. Those of you know your comic books will know what I'm talking about. But they to me are like they build stories differently and stuff, and I love that. So yeah, that's a bit about me. But what am I passionate about? Passionate about really standing up for the right thing. And it sounds a bit blit, but I've spent so much time in the NHS whereby I meet people after people who seem to always talk about that you need to compromise, yeah, for the bigger picture. And it tends to happen that compromise ends up becoming collusion. I really, really dislike that. And leadership, I don't know what's happened in the NHS. And leadership has become more about process. It's always there. You do a few documents, do a few things. It's never about outcomes. And it just bothers me. If your job is to tackle, I don't know, is to tackle, let's just say, cancer care, and cancer care has not improved, then surely the responsibility of that has to lie. You can't turn around and say, well, it's a system. But that is the job of the leadership. If your job is to tackle workforce inequalities and inequalities getting worse, then I'm afraid you're not succeeding in your job. And I think if we don't get to that point without the individual feeling a bit threatened, and don't get me started on be kind, then I don't think we'll make progress. We are very proud in the diabetes world to make the progress. And of course, there's lots of things that need to be done. But you got to be proud of what your outcomes are, and you got to have like a common goal that you're trying to get to, and not confusing that, not I don't know, changing your direction or forgetting the main focus. And I'll give you an example. So those of you know me, I'm hugely passionate, always have been about improving type 1 diabetes care. And over the last 9, 10 years, that's what I've been engaged in the NHS and now looking at other countries, whether it's India, different parts of Africa, whatever, helping out wherever I can. And compromising anything has never been on my syllabus, so to speak. I've been asked many times to let things go and the process will take over. No, it doesn't. I know it doesn't. I still take emails and phone calls from people and I try and help wherever feasible. But, I think that is the job of leadership. I think leadership should be able to stand up, should be able to make sure that nobody changes their focus, and it doesn't happen enough in the NHS. So NHS outcomes are what they are. So there's that about the NHS. And I think leadership should also be about being open about failures and, what doesn't work, what does work, etc. Anyway, the point about this particular YouTube channel is to sort of challenge the rhetoric, not just come out and say stuff which you've heard plenty times over. Let's do something controversial, push the boundaries, not be afraid to speak up stuff. So I'm going to ask some fabulous people to are never afraid, and I've got a lot of respect for them for standing up and being different, and with outcomes to boot. It's important. If you don't have outcomes, I'm sorry, but any other sphere of life, you are measured by your outcomes. But in the health system, it's evidently everybody else's fault but yours. That doesn't work for me. And I'm afraid, I mean, you look at right now, there's a 10-year plan in the offing. And if you ask people, why haven't the NHS succeeded over the last two plans, right? There was a plan in 2014 called I think it was Forward View, NHS Forward View. There was one in 2019, which was called the long-term plan. But we're here another 5, 6 years later making another 10-year plan. So has it succeeded? Is there a sort of chart which shows what has worked, what hasn't? Have you learned from that? Well, I haven't seen much of that. And you get the similar people with the similar mindset trying to do it. So, as to say, you keep on doing the same thing. It's a sign of insanity, so to speak, especially when it's going wrong. But that's where we are. So let's try and raise the bar a little bit. Let's try and talk about things. Let's make people more aware of what's going on. And which brings me on to one of the things I really like talking about, which is the lack of people actually willing to stand up for Generation Next. I mean, I'm a doctor, and do I see myself as better than everybody else? Nope. We work in a multidisciplinary team comprised of everybody, but I know what I know, and I know what I provide. Not everybody else can provide, and that's a skill set, and I've trained for that, I've learned for that. And somehow in this country, a lot of people seem to have got together and tried to make sure that the word doctor is somehow something to be, a bit ashamed of. And, you can't say out in public. I don't know whether this country has been infused, especially amongst leadership, by watching the whole video of Lancelot Spratt from the 70s, 60s, whenever it was, and thinking that all doctors are like that. But the reality is that lots of people have got chips on their shoulders. There is a degree of jealousy, of course, about people becoming doctors and getting to those positions. And somehow everybody seems to have got to that place whereby you've got to feed doctors, you've got to make them get to their place, or make them understand their position. Well, as I said, I don't think you need to do anything like that. I think if you're a doctor, you need to be very proud of it. And I think that goes hand in hand. It's not just being proud of it. I think it's very important you stand up for your next generation. You be an inspirational figure for them. You go to meetings and don't compromise them. You can't get to a career of, happiness or a degree of privilege, which a lot of consultants have, and then suddenly forget about all your hard yards and all the people who are coming after you. I'm sorry, but that doesn't wash with me. Never has. So a lot of these YouTube podcasts or videos or whatever you call it is going to be about that. I'm afraid the time is over for some people just to roll over, and I've never done a role where I've done that. And I think for the record, I think a lot of people will say that you can't get into high positions if you stand up. That's complete nonsense. I have done senior leadership roles across the system, work for the General Medical Council, trying to look after international medical graduates and advise to them about their referral rates. We have managed to sort of try and tighten those. I've worked in a national role for longer than a lot of people with some outcomes to boot, which I'm afraid a lot of people can put down on as a example of, what they have done in their career. Royal College of Physicians worked on it, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in due course about that as well. But there is a degree of, collusion and corruption and politics, and people seem to have forgotten the Northern Star, right? Improving healthcare. And but hey, some of us will try. It's not a problem, and we sort of explains probably the Millennium Falcon background. Got to join the resistance, right? And got to sort of fight against it. So that's about enough ranting for start. But it's going to be a lot of ranting, and I want people to come along to this and rant and talk about what's frustrating. Talk about what do you want to change. All right, there's a lot of things that need changing, and we challenge the leadership. We challenge people in account. People do not have accountability, and why do we challenge that, right? And to every single one sitting out there going like, well, if you do that, you can't progress. I am here with you can look up the career path, never taken a back step, never. I worked in postnatal hospitals, trust, ask around, never taken a back step whenever it comes to people living with diabetes. You can look up my region, Hampshire Isle of Wight. Nope, never either. National role, no. You can ask around people with diabetes. I will always give 110%. And there is no compromise. Ask around in NHS England. Everybody knows my positions. As the same with the Royal College of Physicians. Have I been ever afraid of challenging what I think is to be wrong while people blame politics? Not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. Good medical practice or duty of candor wins all the time over any silly rule somebody's made up. And you can criticize me or do whatever you want for that, but that's me. Same for General Medical Council. Challenged enough, ask people around, not a problem, no hesitation whatsoever. So I want you to sort of try and sort of learn from that a little bit, and I can pass you tips to that. And my message to all seniors are use your privilege to help your generation next. Without that, you won't have anybody to look after you. Well, even private care needs trained people. But we can do better. We can do better. And let's start something. Let's try something. Why not? I think that's important. So let's wrap it up there for today. And I think I just wanted to thank everybody for at least listening, tuning in. It will be great fun. And I can tell you, it's going to be full of stuff, which is going to be entertaining, to say the least. So, signing off from the first episode of Karmic. Hopefully that gives you a teaser trailer of what's coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribe away if you want to know more about what's coming next. And yeah, catch up. We'll catch up soon. So it is going to be fun. Thank you, guys.